Before this video begins, I want to answer a question that I'm sure I'm going to be asked, and that is why. See, I was ready to record this video. I had finished the script, because I'm doing scripts now for some reason, and MatPat goes and publishes his theory on the same topic. So, before I saw the video, I was wondering, okay, should I still make this video? Because I wasn't too far, it wouldn't be too hard to just throw away the thing and work on something else. But after watching the video, I kind of decided, yeah, no, I think I should still do this, because, I mean, his video was good. I think it actually covered quite a bit of what we need to know about this theory, about the crying child's name, but there's a few things he left out, and I want to get to all of them, and even just in case you haven't seen his theory, I want to talk about it myself. If you want to see his video, that's good. He's going to cover some things I won't, and I'll cover some things he didn't. But I would appreciate it if you sticked around, because it helps me out, and I do think there's some stuff here that you will like to know, even if he didn't exactly talk about them. That being said, enjoy the video. But first...
Only a small percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed. If you want to see more, consider subscribing.
It's free and you can always unsubscribe later. So yeah, this video is about Evan Afton, the crying child, and that seems to be his name now, which we haven't known for years, but now we have discovered. But what MatPat didn't talk about, and what I wanted to talk about, was how this affects the rest of the series. And yes, it connects to Blackbird the story, which I'll get into all this in a second, just in case you haven't seen his theory and have no idea what I'm talking about. I will get to that. But this actually has a ton of really important revelations for the rest of the series. Not just these books, but the games as well, ones that he didn't really talk about. Before we talk about Blackbird, we do need to talk about the Freddy Files. Now this is a really weird book in the series. It's seemingly just an activity book. But of course, there's some hidden stuff in here. There's the faded text that I've grown to just really despise because it's so confusing. There's the red text. There's all this weird little details going on. Some sentences in the book seem to have been changed and tampered with, and all in all, it kind of gives us an idea of what's going on here, and it's actually given us a lot of revelations about the rest of the series. To quickly catch you up, without going into too much detail, this book seems to be kind of featuring a conversation between Cassidy and the Bite victim, the two kids who we think possess Golden Freddy in the game's universe, who are also mirrored by Jake and Andrew in the Fazbear Frights universe. Yeah, we're already confusing. This is going to be a long ride. This book actually is the one that gave us Cassidy's name through one of the puzzles in the book. So I think, looking back, we should have probably seen that this was going to give us the name of the Bite victim as well, since they're the two characters focused on in this book. And we got the name for one of them. I guess it would kind of make sense to get it for the other one too. We just didn't look, I guess, until now. I mean, we were looking, but it took us a surprisingly long time to find anything. I don't know. In the Foxy Grid puzzle in this book, we have recently found the name of the Bite victim. Now, the person who discovered this, their name is Wolfie1740Kingdom on Reddit, because Reddit is where everything comes from, apparently. And they discovered this name using a really complicated method, and there was a lot of trial and error involved. I'll link the post in the comments of how they found this, so you can kind of see how exactly this happened, and MatPat talks about it in his video as well, so I'm not going to go too in detail about that. What I do want to talk about is how this does affect the rest of the series, like I mentioned, and how Evan Afton is actually a lot more important of a name than we thought. So how does this all connect with Blackbird? Well, in Blackbird, in the second story, The Real Jake, the main character Jake is actually one of the kids who possesses the Stitch Wraith, okay? So he's an important character in these books. We never really hear his last name, so that's already an interesting detail. I mean, to be fair, in not many of these stories do we ever hear the kids' last names. It's just not all that common, but still, let's pretend that's an interesting detail. Anyway, we're not going to be focusing too much on Jake himself just yet. What's really interesting is his father, whose name is, you guessed it, Evan. But that could just be a big coincidence. I mean, not only is it still a bit iffy as to whether this is just a coincidence and finding Evan in this puzzle was all just one big lucky guess, that could be what's going on here, but the fact that Evan shows up in this book, the name Evan, and that, get this, his brother's name is Michael, Jake's uncle. And even more interesting, Michael is said to act robotically and be Evan's only living family. All of this is just, it's a little too much, you know? Everything like this on its own isn't quite enough to make me convinced that, okay, Evan probably is the real name of the bite victim, but all of this together just fits too well, and I think, I'm not gonna say for sure, but I think this is Evan. Okay, but what does this mean? Well, the first thing to point out here is this means Jake is actually William Afton's grandson. Now that's already an interesting bit of trivia, right? I mean, okay, it's an interesting little thing to think about, but it's not much more than that. Except when you consider what happens at the end of the book, Blackbird. Again, in the Stitch Wraith teaser, at the end of Blackbird, which there is one in every book, but in this one, and it is insane, I recommend you read it for yourself because it's gonna sound like I'm just making this up, William Afton creates a mech, a robot mech, out of junk, out of all the junk that the Stitch Wraith has been collecting through the rest of the series so far. He makes a robot mech out of it, and this sounds crazy coming out of my mouth. So he, is absorbing all of this trash into himself, making it come alive in this weird robot amalgamation. He spits the Stitch Wraith out of it, which was also drawn into this big clump of junk. Now, Andrew is still in the Stitch Wraith. He managed to make it out. But while Jake was trying to save Andrew and get them out of there, out of this evil robot William Afton thing, Jake actually got stuck in this robot. He may be dead. I don't think so. I don't think his character's over. It seems like there's more that's gonna happen with him. But he's at least stuck in this robot thing. He is stuck there with his evil grandfather, and somehow he's gonna have to stop him from whatever evil plan he has now. We don't know where that's gonna go from there, but old grandson and old grandfather are going to have to spend a bit of awkward time together while this whole thing gets sorted out, and Andrew is going to have to do his own thing trying to get Jake out of there and stop William. So now more than ever, this seems to be a family story. I mean, in the first 3 games, yeah, it was just about a security guard working at a spooky place. Now it's a whole family saga. We've got William Afton, Michael Afton, who we play as in the games, Elizabeth Afton. We've got Evan Afton now, whose son is actually the main character in this book series. That's a pretty big revelation. And I'm surprised that Matt Pat didn't actually talk about this in his theory, and I think the reason for that is because he was very apprehensive about believing this. I think that it's as close to confirmed as it can be without being confirmed. There's parts of it that are still a stretch in how he got to the name Evan, but that connected with this character in Blackbird makes it a lot more likely to me. And I think that's why he didn't really talk about it in his theory, because he wasn't quite sure this is the case. I am, and so I'm ready to hypothesize about what this could mean, and it seems like it means William Afton's grandson is actually the main character of these books, just like William Afton's son is the main character of the games. It's now again a family saga, and where it goes, I'm not quite sure, but it's going to be interesting. I know a lot of people have been saying that these books might be in the same universe as the games or the other book series, the Silver Eyes one. I don't think it's in the same universe as the games. I've talked about this before, so I won't go too in-depth into it now, but there's a lot of inconsistencies between the Fazbear Fright books and the games. Just a lot of differences and a lot of clashing events in the story that made me think, no, it's probably not the same universe. The other books it could be the case. I haven't really thought about that all that much. That might be the topic for a theory another day. But it's at least not probably in the games. But yeah, that seems to be what's going on at this very moment. I wouldn't have guessed that Jake is related to William. It came completely out of the blue, to be honest. But I do think it's the case, because not only does it just make this so much more interesting, there's so many more places that this story could go with this, if this is the case. And I'm excited to see where it goes. But hey, that's I can't really breathe.